Google Ads is how I always related it to baseball. Playing baseball through my youth, and our coach always said it's the little things that can win the game. Yeah, and in Google Ads, it's kind of the same thing. You make these little adjustments, and then you can get leads from it. And those little adjustments for someone just self-managing their campaigns, that can go a long ways. It's not necessarily the home runs in Google Ads. Rarely it's something major that you did to a campaign that's going to drive more leads.
Hey friends, you are listening to the CarrotCast podcast, where we help investors and agents build businesses of freedom and impact by dialing in your marketing, your online marketing. I'm your host, Brady Winder, and today I have with me my friend, my coworker, PPC expert, Mr. Brendan Holmes. What's up, Brendan? How you doing, man?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Brendan has years on me. Brendan has been at Carrot since the beginning, in it with Trevor when this thing started, and he knows Carrot customers, he knows Carrot members in and out. He knows real estate marketing in and out, and he's been running PPC campaigns for, I don't know, how many members do you think over the years ran campaigns for?
Hundreds. Yeah, hundreds. It's kind of funny that before our call, you mentioned Kylie. I was on a call with Kylie talking about kind of paid marketing last week, and I got out my binder, and this is how I learned that was Google Ads in 2013.
Yes,
and I read almost every one of those pages to learn about, and now probably 90% of that's probably obsolete, and then the other 10% we kind of still use.
Yeah. That's awesome. So yeah, you've been running PPC, Google PPC, Google Ads for members for years, since before it was called Google Ads, when it was just pay-per-click.
AdWords. Yeah. Is this
AdWords, that's right.
AdWords, yeah.
Yeah, Google AdWords. It wasn't even that long ago. So everybody listening and watching, it's paid ads month at Carrot. So before you do anything else, or I guess after the podcast, go to carrot.com/ads, ADS, and we've got a bunch of resources on Facebook ads, on Google ads, YouTube ads, any sort of paid marketing that you want to run to supplement your SEO. If you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, you know that SEO, we practice what we preach. It's the best way to generate leads consistently, predictably, and the most motivated seller leads. And so we always teach people, build up your SEO over the long term. If you're just getting started, it can take 3 to 6 months to start to see some of those SEO efforts pay off. And so pay-per-click is pay-per-click, Facebook ads are a great way to, work into your overall marketing strategy. We'll talk about where that fits in. But this episode is all going to be all about best tips for PPC getting started, some of the most common mistakes that people make, what it looks like to run campaigns yourself versus, hiring out to someone, which we'll give you options for that as well. Budget expectations, like what to expect, is it varies so much by market, and people have no idea, at times, if they're getting ripped off or if they're getting, leads at a good price. And so we're going to do our best to cover all those things and not, give you too much of a fire hose. But we're going to dive into Google Ads and anything else you guys want to learn on paid marketing, carrot.com/ads. And also to get our free PPC resource we'll talk about later in the call, that's going to be on that page as well. So yeah, Brendan, let's kick it off, man. You've been doing PPC campaigns for years. Let's first talk about if someone a real estate investor wants to get started in PPC, what's the best time? Do they need to be in business for a few years? What are the things that they need before they even consider doing this?
Yeah. Consideration number one is a website. So not necessarily do they have to be in business for years. They need to optimize their websites for conversion. So the optimization side of that is a little bit different than optimization could be a word or term that's used for more of the SEO side of it. But for conversion, that needs to be dialed in before you're thinking about any paid traffic. You want to send it to a site that has some credibility, making sure that looks good on mobile, that's optimized for the mobile side. Probably 75% of your leads could come from mobile. So that is one piece that I think is people get ahead of themselves, is that I want to start paid traffic, but when I either audit accounts through our Carrot support, or someone's reaching out to me potentially looking at Google Ads, newer investor, older investor, it doesn't, that piece doesn't really matter. It's they get ahead of themselves and they don't think about the website first and how it converts and how besides the on page, making sure their lead notifications are integrated. So kind of taking a step back and making sure all that is in place before starting that Google Ads campaign, or Facebook or Bing or whatever, any kind of paid source.
Yeah. And just to be clear and reiterate, this is a must-have, right? Not a should-have. Like, you're not going to like, you're just going to be wasting money if your website's not converting.
Yes, it's a must-have. I if I'm going to manage a member, or if there's, like, say, we audit through the year, we'll probably audit 20 accounts through our Carrot support. Somebody just reaching out and looking for me to review. I'll see a lot of websites they just purchased. Maybe they've been a Carrot member for a month or 2 months, and they still have the canned website. Everything is still the same. They haven't added any testimonials, their about pages, the canned content. They still have the stucco house with in the background. So there's no personality to it. There's nothing to connect. There's no testimonials. And over the years, that testimonials spot is sometimes a little tricky, because if it is a new investor, maybe they don't have testimonials to add to their website yet. So it could be looking outside their industry. If they are just starting out, they probably are in a different industry, have a different career. Maybe they can bring some of that personality onto their website if they don't have that true seller testimonial.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And if anyone listening, watching this doesn't have any testimonials, go to carrot.com/convert. We just did a whole episode all about how to get testimonials, what they should look like, what you should say, or go to YouTube, type in Carrot testimonials. One question I had, I might be jumping the gun here, but I feel like it's relevant for what you're talking about, like making sure your website is set up. You have to have these things in place before you even start running Google Ads and putting money into it. But I want to ask, how many, depending on the market or the search phrase, about how many other pay-per-click ads are you competing with? I feel like it's more and more now. It used to be like, oh, there's an ad on Google years ago. Now it's like, holy crap, is it 5 ads I got to scroll past? Meaning, like, are there 5 other investors you're competing with? And if they all have their site dialed in and you don't, and sellers clicking down every one.
Depends on market, but in a smaller market, you might only be competing against 1 or 2 other investors for the top 4 ad spots. In a metro market, if you're statewide or national, you're competing, probably all 4 of those are other investors. And that could be, somebody who is, just an investor, a Carrot member, or it can be the national investor, the iBuyer. They drive traffic. They've kind of pulled out a little bit, like OfferPad, Open Door, those types. They were running paid traffic, kind of pulled back some over the
probably
the course
drove
of
up
the last
costs
year.
temporarily.
It could, for sure. It definitely could. I've seen, if you're in a specific market, and it's a metro type of market, that could impact that for sure. There's many other reasons costs could fluctuate, but I saw it definitely in some metro markets that had national buyers definitely kind of controlling the costs, and that cost could have been more like the top number 1 and number 2 ad position, where they were really worried about number 3 and 4. They wanted to be at the top, so they were willing to pay for those spots. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about expectations, ROI. How much are you going to be paying per lead when you're going into a market? What's this look like? Let's compare. Roseburg's pretty small. Roseburg's like 30,000 people. How big is Klamath Falls? Smaller than Roseburg?
Yeah, it's right about the same size.
About the same size? I don't know any. Okay, let's compare like Eugene, Oregon. I don't know, a few 100,000 people. I don't even know. Smaller market to, say, like Dallas. What are expectations that people can relate to?
Number one is like that smaller market, the expectation of. Let me back up real quick because you talked about the expectations of ROI and what
Hmm.
what the most important metric is that your cost per deal metric, and
Hmm.
that's then aligning with you have to know where your leads are coming from. And if you don't have conversion tracking or you don't have a good CRM, that really that could harm a member. I've had members in the past that had no idea where their leads were coming from. And then I would have to look into their Carrot dashboard and say, well, okay, this one was a Google Ads, this one was a organic, this one came direct. So knowing number one, knowing where your leads are coming from, and then two, being able to track that specific lead to if that turned out to a deal. The motivated seller terms have pretty much stayed consistent. It's the
Hmm.
searcher that has changed. So
Hmm.
yeah, retail searches are shifting into more of the motivated seller type of search. Somebody that is not necessarily in a hurry, but maybe their house has been listed for 2 years. And like I use Klamath Falls as an example. We have a very nice golf course with some $1 million homes out there, Californians that they're not necessarily in a hurry to sell their house. They're not they're they have plenty of means to pay, continue to pay, or they're no hurry,
Hmm.
but they're starting to search for that term to sell their house fast.
Hmm.
They just want to know how to sell their house fast, but that's not the true motivated seller. So those are easy to weed out in your leads. It's
Hmm.
more paying attention and focused on those one leads that, if it's a batch of 5 leads that have come in the past month, pay attention to those and track those through the deal. And that deal could take 3 or 4 months, but keeping track of that specific lead that is a whatever source, paid traffic lead, and making sure that your ROI over 6 months, a year, in paid, whatever paid source you're using, but in Google Ads in this case, making sure that your ROI is outpacing how much you're spending on it. So
Hmm.
that's number one. And then number two, kind of using the example of these types of markets like Eugene compared to Dallas, the expectation how many leads are possible in those areas. And so I've had members in the past who have come into like a Eugene market, and they've heard from the grapevine that 20 leads is possible in my area. And sometimes I wonder, or I've known that competitors have kind of said that, like they think that my competitor's getting 20 leads. Well, yeah, they might be telling you they're getting 20 leads. So then you kind
Yeah.
of feel like, maybe you don't even need to go into it, or maybe your expectations are a little bit too high.
And do they
So you,
know? Because based on what you're talking about, like, and a lot of members we've talked with over the years, not everybody has. I would almost argue the majority. A lot of people don't really know their lead sources and have their KPIs dialed in to be able to say, "I'm getting exactly this many from PPC, this many from Facebook." They just know they're getting leads and they're closing deals, or
yeah,
not.
exactly. Yeah. And that competitor might be the same case. Like we're getting 20 leads. We don't know where they're coming from, but we're getting 20 leads.
Yeah.
And so in those smaller markets that are probably under like in Google calls it reach. So it's not necessarily population. It's based off of how many devices they can actually, potentially show ads to. So usually that reach is much higher than your population. But a reach under 500,000, let's say, you're potentially going to either really need great leads because you're only going to be able to drive this many leads per month, and hopefully those are quality and you could do something with them. And then I always kind of try to build in, well, the Google Ads is going to be a great source for you, but you might need other channels. You
Hmm.
might need other paid channels. You might need offline channels. You might need something else to build in. And I think that's sometimes where in a market like that, they fail because the expectations aren't set correctly.
Hmm.
Or they don't have the marketing budget to be in Google Ads and maybe some direct mail and maybe some cold calling or whatever. Uh, they're putting all of their chips into one thing in that
Hmm.
specific lower traffic area,
And they're
and
just trying
it
to
doesn't.
bank on that.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. So we know we've established at this point, if you're uh let's say if you got your website up and running, it's converting, it's dialed in, and you started working on your SEO, PPC, Google Ads is the first thing you want to do to supplement those to get leads now while you work on the long term. One question I have is, you know, we see all the time people do their marketing. Trevor coined the phrase math over emotion in your marketing. And so people get emotional and they start, you're probably in this day in and day out with, your clients is people see the dollar signs and they see the money going out the door and they're like, oh crap, not getting leads. And they get scared and then they pull back. And so my question is, how long does somebody need to commit? Commit is a keyword to doing Google ads before, they, they hit pause or reevaluate. Is this 3 months, 6 months, a year,
Yeah, I think if someone's asking me to manage their account, I usually say at least 3 months, and if not more, like if you are getting leads within that 3 months, which you should be anyways, then it's evaluating those types of leads, and it could market and season will also factor into that. So if I start a campaign at the end of November, that's not the same as starting a campaign at the beginning of May. The market could be totally different. So that seasonality side of it, it will factor in. So that's why I usually say 3 months, and give them you might need longer. If you're getting leads and we know some of these leads have been quality, but you just haven't been able to close one, we need to reevaluate after 3 months for sure. But then gosh, there is promise here. In some markets, though, after 3 months, you just know either the budget isn't matching, maybe they don't have enough budget to potentially be in that area, and then it could be looking at their locations and what we could potentially do with that. But there's some other factors in there for sure. But overall, 3 months, 6 months, depending kind of what markets they are, and timing. Timing's big. I think that's another expectation that isn't on a lot of their minds when they're starting is, when am I starting this, and what's my market looking like right now? And it's hard I know it's hard. That's terribly hard. Like for an investor who is spending thousands of dollars a month on paid traffic, that's hard.
Right.
But like you said, it's the emotion side that you try to eliminate as much as possible and have that clear picture. But again, there are times that it is as cut and dry. After 3 months, if we don't make these changes to the account, honestly, go try something else. Go put your money in a different channel.
Interesting. Well, I'm glad you brought up seasonality. Does it, do you see the same seasonality as leads overall, like as organic leads where it's, slump in the winter and then comes back up in springtime?
Yeah, I do. But it's not across the board. It's very dependent on market too. Typically it starts in November, kind of like Thanksgiving time. This last year in 2022, kind of a slowdown in the paid traffic leads started more around Halloween, and then it kind of continued. But then there were some markets that in December that were like Midwest, snowy, very cold markets that thrived in December. They crushed their lead volumes.
They're not phased by winter.
Where I would anticipate a slowdown because that's pretty much what always happens. And those every year since I've been managing campaigns that I'll get questions. What happened? What happened to our Google Ads campaign? What did we do wrong? What's going on? And if we can go back and say the Google Ads campaigns, besides the moves that we always make, the daily, the weekly, the monthly, if there were no major shifts in the Google Ads campaign, what other kind of factors were there? It could be a market. It could be competitors, maybe. It could be if you made any website changes. I've found that too, that members didn't communicate that they had changed their website. And honestly, I check their websites, but I'm not in there every other week. I'm looking at their websites. And especially if they've made changes on within their hero section that Now we have the lead gen banner, which I think is amazing, yeah,
Hmm.
especially on mobile.
Oh yeah.
Um, but before that, we'd have members putting videos in their hero section, and without checking it on their phone, yeah, the video would be pushing their form down, and potentially they're losing out on leads on mobile. So those are those kind of outside the Google Ads realm. Like we can tell Google Ads is we didn't make any changes to really mess up the account.
Right.
What else could be happening?
Yeah, it matters a whole lot. We were talking about that. I was talking about that with Brian Driscoll and Chad Keller on one of the previous podcasts about conversion and just the importance of that form placement, like having it, we call it above the fold, but near the top of your website, so that, especially if someone's clicking on a Google ad, they're usually not going to make it even halfway down the page. They're going to see whatever's at the top, fill out the form, read the information, and bounce, and maybe even go to the next ad. Like they're finding, they're looking for exactly what they need. They're not going to spend the time to usually to browse the whole page. Am I often saying that? Or is
No,
that kind of what you
that's
see?
absolutely
Okay.
right. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Maybe not so much on desktop. Desktop is still important. I still love the lead gen banner on desktop, but on mobile, yeah, very important.
Yeah. And it's funny because it's crazy because everybody, like you and me, normal people, we visit everything or most sites on mobile. Everybody's on their phones, but then you build websites on the computer. You build websites on a desktop, and we forget like the main thing. Oh my gosh, mobile! It has to look good.
Yeah.
Which that's one of the things Carrot makes easy, is making it look good and perform on mobile, so you don't have to worry about that as much. But let's talk about. I want to talk about the difference between managing ads. If I were to start a PPC campaign, Google Ads campaign, and manage it myself versus outsourcing to someone like yourself, what's the biggest difference? And I guess what I'm asking is like, what is the thing you see people mess up or do wrong, or like, oh, I should have just passed it off to someone else sooner, should outsource it sooner. And I'm not like, we don't, the Carrot doesn't, people listening, we're not greatly benefiting from, like, we're not making our bread and butter from getting a few more PPC clients or to have
Yeah.
people work with our vendors. That's not our agenda. Our agenda is to help you save your time and money so you can close more deals and have more freedom. I mean that like in full sincerity. And so I have no agenda when I ask this, but like when people come to you and they're like, "Oh my gosh, Brendan, I did the PPC campaign, wasted money, like help me." What are they doing wrong?
Yeah. And it's kind of to add to that real quick is that, Google Ads isn't, it's kind of exciting, but it's not what I love. I don't really love Google Ads. I love when people are successful with it, and I trust in educating the members who are either managing themselves or using myself or anyone else. Uh, when they're successful, that piece is still, the why I do this. And
Yeah.
so uh, I love auditing the accounts that come through our carrier support, and most of those accounts they've had Google. So number one uh, mistake is having Google create your motivated seller campaign. So I'll speak to motivated seller campaign specifically. So when you start up a Google Ads campaign, Google pretty much forces you now to create what they call a smart campaign, and the smart campaign uh, it's industry based. So it's real estate industry based, not
Mm.
real estate investor, not looking for motivated sellers. Now, some of the keywords that are within there are motivated seller keywords, but
Mm.
the other batch of them are just real estate keywords.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two, you lose control of some of the management within those smart campaigns. So it's trusting that when you signed up with Google and they might have had a call with one of the Google Ads strategists before, and they're walking them through the stages. They're building trust with Google then, or Google, the sales Google salesman. He's building trust with the member. So they kind of have this misconception in their mind that this is how I should be creating a campaign. And so
Mm.
that's number one. Like, don't put that trust in Google to build your campaign for you. It's
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah,
And
over the
well,
years,
the thing, I want to interrupt you just real quick. The thing that pops out to me about that is that, whether it's Google or not, trusting somebody that's not industry specific, that doesn't have industry experience, seems like the key. Google doesn't know real
yeah,
estate investors, wholesalers in and out. Yeah.
yeah, and there are. yeah, I've come across over the years some good PPC management companies that aren't real estate investor specific.
Yeah.
There's that learning curve though. And yeah, anyone that has managed our industry specific ads, we all went through that learning curve. And it took, that learning curve for Trevor and I was probably 2014 when we had a member in Orlando willing to pay for his ads. And we tossed thousands of keywords at Google. And this is pretty much what we still use today for our quick start, or in the evergreen webinar, we give out our Google Ads campaign. That's still pretty much that campaign that we learned from. There's been iterations from it, but that's kind of where it came from. So, number one, don't trust so much in Google. Number two, probably would be that, again, going back to that expectation of what's possible and not learning what or how to self-manage that campaign. So if you're managing your campaign, there's Google Ads, there's, like through Carrot Support, if you have that type of means to reach out to somebody who has been managing ads and give you some tips or look over, audit campaigns. So not educating yourself on what the keyword structures are, what that really means. What do broad match keywords mean? What does that mean? What kind of traffic am I going to be sending, or phrase or exact, or targeting options? There's limitations on our industry, on the housing industry, that Google kind of limits our what we can target. We can no longer target zip codes. A lot of members used to like to target by zip code. That was about 2 years ago that they removed that. So that's probably number two, is just educating yourself if you're using a specific campaign. And maybe number three would be starting with too much going on, too big of a campaign. So
meaning like too many keywords.
Too many keywords, yes. That's probably bigger factor. Too many keywords, maybe using the wrong targeting. There's a couple different ways you could target your locations. Maybe you have it too wide and you're getting leads from other states or other countries or clicks from those. But the keywords probably is the number one, that you're looking at the match types and then how many. So I usually say, if you're going to manage your own campaign and you haven't received one like ours, if you haven't been given a campaign, start with like 20, 25 keywords and just get your bearings on what that means. And then there's reports to go look at and the time to kind of spend. Once you have a campaign running, then it's just spending a little time, maybe getting it going. You're spending a little time every day, and then maybe that goes into every other day. But it's definitely being involved in the campaign, daily in the first few weeks, maybe a month. And then when you see, okay, this is how I need to manage my campaign. These are the keywords that are working and aren't working. That's probably number one. Don't use Google to build it. Number two, educate yourself. And then number three, don't start so broad. Don't start with hundreds of keywords. One that we'd had in the past that members used to get a spreadsheet from Sean Terry. So this is dating back to probably 6 years ago. And this campaign that you'd get was an amazing campaign for someone who knew how to manage Google Ads. But the members who didn't, so there were thousands of keywords in this campaign.
Oh gosh.
And if you didn't know what you're doing, I remember auditing through our support a campaign that I think they had wasted about $8,000 on just not knowing what they were doing and using this campaign structure. So
it's so much to manage. Like,
then it gets crazy.
I remember trying Facebook ads myself for the first time, and I think this was after working at Carrot for a couple of years. I was like, oh, I've got my head wrapped around it, and back then, little did I know, it was like having your head wrapped around even the copy and the hooks and the messaging and even the creative and the imagery is, in a lot of cases, not enough if you are gonna target poorly and budget poorly and go after too many keywords or too many areas, and it's like it was not a fruitful experience. I'll just say that. So what you're saying
Yeah.
couldn't be any more important.
And those are the ones that usually come in and just say, yeah, Google Ads isn't working for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, it's not that Google Ads isn't working. It's like, hey, you need someone to manage it well.
Yeah. And that's anyone managing a campaign, that's what we do. We know the ins and outs. Some will have different strategies. Like I have a different strategy when I'm managing a campaign than I would if someone used our quick start campaign. Our quick start campaign, just because I have many members that I can link into and use all their data. So I use a different strategy. Right. Not necessarily. That's, I guess, to me, it is better, but you can still have success just having your own campaign and managing it correctly. So that could be an advantage of someone managing campaign or accounts that they just might have some different data sources. But the drawback too is then you're paying a management fee. But what I think some look at is if someone is managing a campaign and they can be saving you money by kind of doing it the right way, or speeding up the process to do it the right way, then like the member who lost $8,000, if he would have had somebody managing their campaign for however much, he would have saved money. And so there is a cost for the management too. But yeah, it's I still love seeing members manage their own campaigns if they're willing to take the time to learn and it's simply we have a call tomorrow with a Google Ads Quick Start just to go over his account. Like I'm going to train him how to use his the dashboard. I always tell them, just get the app on your phone. And for these guys managing their campaigns, it's just take 20 minutes through your day and just look at it on your phone, and you could make these simple changes. And that's all the Quick Start or a member, that's all they really need to do. They're not managing beyond, into the kind of more advanced strategies. They're managing it at a strategy that is still effective and can be simple. And that's kind of Google Ads is how I always related it to baseball. Playing baseball through my youth, and our coach always said it's the little things that can win the game. Yeah, and in Google Ads, it's kind of the same thing. You make these little adjustments, and then you can get leads from it. And those little adjustments for someone just self-managing their campaigns, that can go a long ways. It's not necessarily the home runs in Google Ads that, rarely it's something major that you did to a campaign that's going to drive more leads.
Yeah, it's not one keyword. It's not one line of copy or something.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. It could be adding in like the trend of this last year and a half or so, or members, instead of targeting a specific area, like a metro area or just a Eugene area or something, they go statewide, where they go multi-states. Yeah. So that could have a big impact. Obviously, you're getting more leads, and your cost per lead's a lot different. Yeah, you're not looking at 20 leads in a metro area. Now you're looking at 100 leads statewide. So that's a game changer. But they also have to have the infrastructure, the business infrastructure to manage those leads and understand the different markets. Yeah, so that's presents its own challenges, but.
Okay. I got a couple other things I want to cover here. One, a technical one real quick. What KPIs are you looking at for a PPC campaign? I feel like this is important for a member too, even if they're not running them themselves, so that they can ask the person they're outsourcing to say, hey, what are you looking at? What does success look like? So that they know they're working with somebody legit.
Yeah, within the Google Ads dashboard and what we can see, cost per lead, number one. And that's the most important KPI, because we can't see cost per deal in a Google Ads dashboard. But yeah, so number one, cost per lead. And then it trickles down, and these are still very important metrics, but depending on what kind of bid strategies they're using, it doesn't hold as much weight. But let's say if a member's just starting out, I still recommend starting out with manual cost per click. instead of using one of the, and that is also to prove out some keywords, get them familiar with what the keyword cost could be, and then maybe changing over to advanced bidding. But looking at your cost per click then, and then your click-through rates, and making sure your click-through rate will determine then how, potentially ad position, potentially ad copy. Those two are going to probably factor into your click-through rates. Your bids are going to factor into your click-through rates. So those, after your cost per lead, look at your cost per click, look at your click-through rate, and then, just by those, you can have a pretty good idea. You could be looking at impression share, and that's getting pretty deep then. You're getting pretty advanced when you're looking at your impression share, and your potentially your impression share lost. Like, you can lose impression share by your budget, but those get more advanced. So just keeping it high level. If I'm just managing my own campaign, I just started out, I want to know cost per lead, I want to know cost per click, I want to know my click-through rate, and then I'm adjusting my bids from the manual bidding process.
Okay, that's helpful. Simple enough. What are you doing to stay relevant and keep the ads fresh? Or is there a need? I guess, like, how often do you end up needing hey, let's go change up some of the ad copy? What are you doing?
Yeah, always a need. Because Google is what they've shifted into what they call responsive ads. So responsive ads, you could put in 12 headlines if you want, and Google's going to change those headlines. Maybe not every time, but they're going to frequently change those headlines so then they look different. And then you have 4 descriptions, so you can
Is it
change
similar
those.
to Facebook where it's you put in 12 and it's going to decide the best one and stick with it, or is it constantly continue testing?
Yeah, it'll stick with winners. And
Okay.
depending on, so that's the drawback to it too, is that, like, on our Carrot Google ads, we had using responsive ads, and what Google doesn't show you is potentially what combinations were the winners. There isn't a dashboard yet to show you what was working. So for our ads, for our Carrot ads, we have now just two ads, and we're always just testing against those two. And we only have 3 headlines, because you have to have 3 headlines. So our ad 1 will have 3 headlines and 2 descriptions. Ad 2 has 3 headlines and 2 descriptions. And you can pin headlines. So we want the headline number 1, we always want to show that first. Headline number 2, we always want to show that second. And then so you have to kind of get a little bit innovative to look at the data a little bit better, or efficiently, to make those changes. So responsive ads, maybe you don't have to change them as often as what you had to in the past because of the limitations with the extended ad copy. But still important to change your ads and continue to look at ads and the click-through rate within ads. Conversions are always, leads are always the most important metric, but you're also looking at that click-through rate, and then potentially looking at how much that ad cost is too. But always looking at your ads, making sure that
Would it be like if your click rate drops and, like if your ads are doing well for a few months and then your click rate starts to taper off, maybe it's looking at, what are other investors doing? Are we all saying the same thing? And maybe that's why it dropped off.
Yeah, that could be, absolutely. Other factors, budget is a factor, competition factor. I mean, there's other factors besides just what your ad copy says. But yes, it could be. I took a screenshot years ago of another investor-specific paid traffic management company, and they had, well, maybe they didn't, but there was 3 ads. So it was when Google shifted to 4 ads at the top. So ad number 1 and 2 and number 4 were all the same ad copy. And I knew this company, so I could, I could see who was running ads. But you don't really want that. But the other side of this responsive ads is making sure your ads look and flow correctly. If you have Sell My House Fast in a headline, and then somewhere else down that line of headlines, you have Sell My House Fast in Chicago. Well, Google could show those 2 headlines within the same ad. So it starts it kind of looks funky if you, off. So trying to make those headlines sound different, look different, than just having kind of the canned copy that
You just
we
sell my
were
house
accustomed to
fast.
before. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and it's good. I'm glad you mentioned that, sometimes it's not the ad copy because like as marketers, we think like, oh, it's not performing. It's got to be the copy. It's got to be the creative. It could be budget, it could be competition, it could be market factors, could be other things, besides just what's in the ad itself. Yeah.
Yeah. And trying to make ads unique. I still struggle with members giving me unique ad copy, something that makes you stand out. We used to be able to use how fast you could make it an offer. That was kind of like the kind of battle of ads, like how fast people can make an offer. I know Express Home Buyers used to say we can make an offer in 7 minutes. And I remember
Mm.
members reaching out and saying, "Can I put that in my ad copy?" Well, yeah, you can if you can really legitimately
How
make an
fast
offer
can you
in
make
7
it?
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like this play on
Right.
how fast we can make an offer. I remember some ad copy said 30 minutes. We can make 30
Mm.
minutes, 7 minutes, an hour, 24 hours, 48 hours. Yeah, it was. But if that's unique to you, yeah, okay, test it. Test it in your ad copy, and see
Yeah.
if it goes. But something
Interesting.
unique rather than the canned content.
Yeah, 7 minutes, I'm almost skeptical. I'm like, "Huh,
Yeah,
7 minutes?" I think
yeah,
I see the 31 below it. I'm like, "These guys sound a little more legit." Maybe they're thinking I don't know,
yeah.
just my
Yeah, that 30-minute one actually worked. It worked
Did it?
well. Like click-through rates went, spiked. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, so that's a good point, for the ad copy. Think about what makes your business unique and set apart. Maybe you're hybrid, maybe agent and investor, and that's something you can, market. Maybe you can close fast. What's your unique selling proposition, as we'd call it? That's a good point. Any other pro tips, anything to keep ads interesting? Anything you want to mention as far as targeting, do's and don'ts that we feel like people should know if they're doing PPC?
Landing page testing has come up in conversation this past
I'm so glad you
year.
said that
Yeah.
because I was going to ask and I forgot. So yes, let's dive into it.
Yeah. So that's more like that advanced move. Google calls them experiments, but you can A/B test in Google Ads, putting together. It could be using your homepage, and then you create another landing page that's simplified, and you can test that. Yeah,
Mhm.
50-50 split and see what performs better. For myself, yeah, I know there's chatter or conversations that landing pages or squeeze pages, as we used to call them, are more effective than driving traffic to a homepage that has a nav bar and some copy to it. And I think the reasoning behind that might be that it's distracting if you have too much information on your site. But there are times that maybe I've found that to be true. But overall, like if I look at it, yeah, homepages, as long as they have credibility, they're set for conversion rate optimization. I still the homepage has always been one of my favorites. As long as it has checks those boxes, looks good on
Right.
mobile.
The
Um,
quality dialed in ones are still converting
yes,
consistently.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and so I know that's been a hot topic, but that's like an advanced piece. Is that creating a squeeze page and running traffic against your homepage and see which one wins out. So that's one. Anything to add? Did you want to add anything to that?
I don't think so. It's hard to make a generalization and say, this one works better because there are so many factors. In general, you do want to give more focus when you are running paid traffic because they're there for a specific reason. But at the same time, if it's the right content on the page, then it's not necessarily a distraction. I think that thought, that methodology, that concept comes from if you send them to a really cluttered page where you have like sidebar ads that are advertising other things, or if you have like a blog feed where it's like, hey, check out these 7 articles. Yeah, that's super distracting. And I think when people think of a website, they think of, oh, all this stuff going on and check out these products. But like, if we're talking about a carrot homepage to attract motivated seller leads, that's different than your average website page. They're not necessarily distractions. They're things that are going to help it convert. And so that's just my thought as to why the carrot homepage is still converting over all these years well for running paid traffic too. My only other thought is you and I were working on content right now. We're doing some tests behind the scenes. I'll keep it really general because I'm not sure what the content will come out like, but we are working on some tests to look at, really slim down landing pages versus home pages. And yeah, we'll see what comes of that. And follow along, guys. Go to carrot.com/ads and check out our blog to see. Maybe we'll put up some examples of like what a really well converting page looks like for sending PPC ads to versus one that's not dialed in. Whether that's landing page versus homepage, or whether that's good homepage versus bad homepage. Because like we're talking all in theory right now. You can have a really crappy landing page squeeze page that's not going to convert. Same thing with a homepage.
Yeah.
And so, there's not a need to overcomplicate it and go out and get another piece of software and start building landing pages. You could do that within Carrot and have it convert. We're doing it right now. So that's my only thought on that.
Yeah, exactly. We've tested hundreds of other landing pages over the years, and still I default to a homepage as long as it looks good. There have been times that I've created another homepage basically because they kind of had messed with their copy or their format more specific and made it just kind of I know Trevor likes to say like ugly websites can, but these are really like bad ugly websites. They just they were good. So created a different like homepage for them. But and then that's just it's not impacting SEO. They're no index, no followed, and we just use them for Google Ads. But I guess not a necessarily advanced tip, but Google. If you're managing your own campaign, Google is going to give you recommendations daily. And it's also educating yourself on what those recommendations mean before you click yes, or to accept them or apply them. Some of them can really harm campaigns without understanding the implications. One of them specific that pops up lately that I'm becoming a believer in more than I ever have been are broad match keywords. And I was always totally against broad match keywords. I had seen too many bad campaigns with broad match. And because of Google's AI algorithm, the algorithm, the piece of that they're learning from this has gotten more advanced or more efficient, more optimized for motivated seller. And the combination of these broad match plus good negative keywords can really kind of get lower cost per click and then expand the keyword level. You might be missing some keywords that you just didn't know people were searching for. So using broad match, but Google lately, they'll, in the past probably 6 months, in campaigns, they'll say shift to all broad match. So you click a button and it will make all of your keywords, same keyword base, but all keywords are turned into broad match. And that's where you really have to be careful of, especially if you're in a metro market or statewide campaign, your campaign could go crazy. Like you're just getting clicks that really don't make sense. And but testing your way into maybe some of those broad match keywords, like take 5 of them, add them in, see what kind of search terms are coming off of them, if they're good or bad, and then adjusting, not just making all 50 or 100 keywords that you have broad match just automatically. So it's like those recommendations, understanding what they mean and how they could impact your account. And that's not necessarily advanced. It's just anyone managing their campaigns needs to understand that.
Yeah, it goes back to what you were talking about earlier. Like, don't always put the trust in Google just because they're, just because that's the platform.
They
don't always know what's best.
Yeah, they are getting better though. I think some of these recommendations are getting. They make a more of a positive impact than a negative impact on our accounts. So, but still understanding what they mean, and especially like say, I've seen it happen in metro markets where somebody will just make all 100 keywords broad match, and all of a sudden they're getting crazy search terms and their budgets, wiped out, and and they thought they were doing good. Like their means were good. they just didn't make the right choice. And then there's advanced bid strategies that you can use. There's advanced target, location targeting you could use. There's a lot of advanced to it. But for someone who is just starting out, kind of just don't get caught up in what others are saying or promising. And that is one really common issue that I hear is that I've heard this competitor, I just went to this mastermind and this guy's getting 20 leads from Google Ads. How do I get that? And well, there's a lot that goes into that. Now, it could be, how long has his campaign been on? Did he say? I mean, his campaign could have been on for a year or two, and it's really dialed in. And he might have the best website that it converts. Where if you're just starting out, maybe strive for that. But Google Ads is still a process, and it's still you have to optimize it. You have to continuously optimize it to get to points that, and so I've had that kind of that idea of people that once I turn on my campaign, I should be getting leads, right? Yeah, you might. I mean, there's campaigns that definitely could get leads in the first few days. I had a member one time who got a lead within 10 minutes. That turned out to be a deal. But for the next 3 months, he did not get a deal. He had nothing. And he decided to pause. And that was years ago. But it was that was one that stuck out. Yeah, you can turn it on. You can get leads right away. Or you might not. I mean, the likelihood that your first month's kind of that ramp up stage. Month 2, you're diving more into the data, and then month 3, you have this great data set that you can work from. And if you're seeing good search terms, and gosh, these people look like they should be converting, then it's okay. Go look at your website. Go see what other kind of changes you can make. Make a headline change. Make a form change. Test something within. Maybe it's going from 3 form fields to 2, or adding in the lead gen banner. So it's once you have good data, knowing then if that data is really looking promising and something that should be turning into deals, then it's that next stage of testing some not landing pages and like squeeze pages, but other pages, other headlines within the website side. Do you have more testimonials to use? I mean,
right. Trying to get those leads to convert at a higher rate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I like that, man. I appreciate you sharing that. That's a good wrap to it. In summary, so educate yourselves, whether you're doing PPC yourself or you're outsourcing, educate yourself on it so you know what you're looking at. And I think that's one of the best things we covered during the podcast, man. It's been fun having you on the podcast, Brennan. One thing I forgot to mention in the beginning, it's kind of funny. You were running the podcast before, I've only been at Carrot 4 or 5 years, and you were running that, and I had to, Brennan, how are we doing show notes? How do we do this whole production thing? And you've been running this show since before I was even around.
Yeah, it's been how amazing it's been. Well, especially since you taken over. I just I did some show notes. I put it on the blog, but how you've taken over and really made it into a nice production, a great production.
Well,
yeah,
I'm grateful to be able to step into
now.
it.
Yeah,
it's legit. It's legit. Yeah. For any of our longtime listeners, you'll appreciate that. Brennan, the OG producer, is coming on the show. So yeah, it's been fun, man. Anyone, if you have any questions on pay-per-click, if it went over your head, if you have any questions at all, email me, brady@carrot.com. We'll get you over to Brennan or the right person to get your questions answered. Go to carrot.com/ads, get our resources. We do our best to give you all of the education you would possibly ever need, even to the point of overwhelm, so that you just are equipped, and we're here to help. So we want you to know that. Please reach out if you need help, because it can get overwhelming fast. That's it. If you like this episode, share with a friend. Please give us a review on Apple Podcasts. I don't ask for them often, but go to Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review if we earned it, and tell a friend about the podcast and help us share the word. But until then, we will see y'all next week.